Think about the last time you checked your bank account and realized a few $100s were missing. You'd be furious, right? You'd call the bank, you'd demand answers, you wouldn't sleep until you knew where your money went. Now imagine that instead of a few $100s, it's $2 trillion. And it's not just missing, it's being set on fire every single year by people you never voted for in rooms you aren't allowed to enter. That is the reality of the American government today. But as of right now, the game has changed. Two men, Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, have just been handed the keys to the most dangerous project in modern history, DOGE. No, not the meme coin, the Department of Government Efficiency. And what they are about to do isn't just a budget cut. It is an all-out war against a shadow government that has been bleeding this country dry for decades. If you think this is just another political stunt, you aren't paying attention. This is the final audit of the American empire, and the people currently living off your tax dollars are absolutely terrified. Let's be honest with each other for a second. You know the system is broken. You feel it every time you go to the grocery store and pay twice as much for eggs as you did 4 years ago. You feel it when you see $100 billion sent overseas while our own borders are wide open and our infrastructure is crumbling. But have you ever asked yourself why it never stops? It doesn't stop because the people in Washington, D.C. have a vested interest in the waste. In D.C., efficiency is a dirty word. If a department doesn't spend its entire budget by the end of the year, they don't get a pat on the back. They get their budget cut the following year. So they find ways to blow it. They buy $800 hammers. They fund studies on why hamsters get aggressive on steroids. And they hire thousands of consultants who do nothing but attend meetings about other meetings. This is the deep state, or the administrative state, a massive unelected fourth branch of government that runs the country regardless of who is in the Oval Office. But now Elon Musk is entering the chat. And if there is one thing we know about Elon, it's that he doesn't use a scalpel, he uses a chainsaw. When he bought Twitter, the experts said the site would crash within a week because he fired 80% of the staff. What happened? The site got faster, introduced more features, and survived the biggest advertiser boycott in history. Elon looked at a company that was bloated with safety and trust committees and realized it was actually a propaganda machine disguised as a tech company. Now he's looking at the US government with the same cold engineering eyes. He isn't looking at programs or sensitive social issues. He's looking at the cost of goods sold. He's looking at the $6.5 trillion the US spends every year and asking, why does this cost so much and produce so little? Enter Vivek Ramaswamy. Vivek is the intellectual ammunition in this fight. He's the guy who spent his entire presidential campaign talking about the three letters, the FBI, the ATF, the CDC, the NRC. He understands that you can't fix a house that has a rotten foundation. You have to tear it down and start over. Together, Elon and Vivek are aiming for $2 trillion in cuts. To give you an idea of how much money that is, it's more than the entire discretionary budget of the United States. It's a number so large, it sounds impossible. But it's only impossible if you think the government needs to be this big. The reality is that the US government is the world's largest and most inefficient corporation. It has over 400 agencies. Most Americans can't even name 20 of them. Do you know what the Railroad Retirement Board does, or the Marine Mammal Commission? We have layers of bureaucracy that exist solely to regulate the bureaucracy. Vivek has pointed out that we have thousands of federal employees who can't be fired because of civil service protections. These people aren't accountable to you. You can't vote them out. They stay in power for 30 or 40 years, slowly pushing their own agendas, writing thousands of pages of regulations that make it impossible for small businesses to survive. This is the bureaucratic blob that Elon and Vivek are planning to dismantle. But don't think for a second that the deep state is going to sit back and let this happen. This is where the story gets dark. We are talking about millions of people whose livelihoods depend on this waste. We are talking about powerful defense contractors who want the wars to continue because bombs mean profit. We are talking about pharmaceutical companies that have captured the FDA. We are talking about the shadow government that has already begun its retaliation. Have you noticed the sudden surge in lawsuits against Musk, the sudden investigations into his companies, the media headlines calling him a threat to democracy? It's not a coincidence. When you threaten to take $2 trillion away from the most powerful people on earth, they don't send you a thank you note. They try to destroy you. Elon Musk and Vivek are essentially trying to perform a hostile takeover of the United States government on behalf of the taxpayers. They are treating the U.S. Treasury like a distressed asset, but the stakes here are much higher than a stock price. The U.S. national debt is currently over $36 trillion. We are adding $1 trillion to that debt every 100 days. We are now spending more money on the interest of our debt than we are on our entire national defense. Let that sink in. We are working, sweating, and paying taxes just to pay the interest on the money Washington already wasted. If we don't cut this spending now, a total currency collapse isn't just a theory. It's an algebraic certainty. The dollar will be worthless, your savings will evaporate, and the American dream will officially be a memory. This is why the DOGE revolution is so critical. It's not about being a Republican or a Democrat. It's about being a mathematician. You cannot spend more than you take in forever. Elon and Vivek are planning to use zero-based budgeting. In the corporate world, this means you start at $0 every year and have to justify every single penny you want to spend. Imagine if the Department of Education had to justify why they spend $80 billion a year while literacy rates are falling. Imagine if the Pentagon had to justify why they have failed 6 audits in a row and can't account for 60% of their assets. That is what is coming. The deep state's main weapon is lawfare. They will use the courts to argue that Elon and Vivek don't have the legal authority to cut these jobs. They will use the unions to go on strike and paralyze the country. They will use the mainstream media to tell you that grandma is going to lose her Social Security if Elon cuts the waste. It's a classic scare tactic. They hold the most vulnerable people hostage to protect the most corrupt people. But here's the truth. Elon isn't talking about cutting Social Security. He's talking about cutting the $500 billion a year that is lost to improper payments and fraud. He's talking about the billions sent to NGOs that are actually just slush funds for political activists. He's talking about the fact that the government owns 20% of the land in the U.S. and thousands of buildings that are completely empty but still cost millions to maintain. What Vivek and Elon are doing is creating a digital mirror. They want to put the entire government budget online in real time so you can see exactly where your money is going. Transparency is the kryptonite of the deep state. They thrive in the shadows in 2,000-page bills that are passed at 3 a.m. before anyone has a chance to read them. By the time you find out that $5 million was spent on transgender sensitivity training in Pakistan, the money is already gone. DOGE is designed to stop the bleeding before it starts. But let's talk about the psychological war. For years, you've been told that you're the problem. You've been told that you need to pay your fair share. You've been told that if you struggle to pay for gas, you should just buy an electric car or tighten your belt, all while the government is throwing your money into a black hole. The DOGE movement is the first time the government is being told to tighten its belt. It's a psychological shift from the government as master to the government as servant. Elon and Vivek are acting as the chief operating officers that America never had. The pushback will be unlike anything we've ever seen. We are already seeing anonymous sources within the intelligence community whispering to the New York Times about the dangers of Musk's involvement. They are afraid because Elon doesn't need their money. He can't be bought. He has his own satellites, his own rocket ships, and his own global communication platform. He is the first person to challenge the deep state, who actually has more resources than some of the agencies he's fighting. And Vivek is the perfect partner because he knows where the bodies are buried in the corporate and regulatory world. So, what does this mean for you? If they succeed, we could see the first real reduction in inflation in our lifetime. When the government stops printing money to fund its waste, the value of your dollar goes up. Your paycheck buys more. The invisible tax of inflation starts to fade. But if they fail, if the deep state manages to block them, or if the political will crumbles, then we are headed for a hard landing. There is no middle ground anymore. We are either going to fix the math or the math is going to fix us. The World War III we should be worried about isn't just happening in the Middle East or Ukraine. The real war is happening in Washington, D.C. It's a war between the producers and the parasites. The producers are the people like you, the truckers, the nurses, the engineers, the small business owners who actually create value. The parasites are the unelected bureaucrats who produce nothing but paperwork and regulations that make your life harder. Elon and Vivek have declared themselves the generals of the producers. You're going to hear a lot of noise over the next few months. You're going to hear that Elon is unhinged. You're going to hear that Vivek is dangerous. You're going to see protests in the streets by government workers who don't want to lose their work-from-home jobs where they only answer 3 emails a day. But I want you to look past the noise. Look at the numbers. $36 trillion in debt, $2 trillion in waste, a currency that has lost 95% of its value since the Federal Reserve was created. That is the real danger. This is a moonshot for America. Just like SpaceX landed a rocket on a tiny platform in the middle of the ocean, Elon is trying to land the American economy back on the platform of sanity. It's high risk, high reward, but for the first time in a long time, there is a glimmer of hope. For the first time, the people who spend your money are actually scared of the people who pay it. And that, my friends, is exactly how a republic is supposed to work. The DOGE revolution is more than just a department. It's a vibe shift. It's a statement that the era of big government and hidden waste is over. Whether they can actually cut $2 trillion remains to be seen, but the fact that they are even trying has already changed the conversation forever. The deep state's biggest fear isn't just Elon Musk. It's that you will realize that we don't need them as much as they told us we did. Stay sharp. The next 2 years will determine the next 100 years of American history. We are watching the dismantling of a machine that has been running since the New Deal. It's going to be messy, it's going to be loud, and it's going to be historic. This is the $2 trillion war, and for the first time, the taxpayers finally have a seat at the table. Think about the sheer audacity of what's happening. Every politician for the last 50 years has promised to cut waste, fraud, and abuse. It's the oldest lie in politics. They say it because it sounds good, but they never do it because the waste is what pays for their re-election campaigns. The fraud is what their donors use to get rich. And the abuse is how they keep their power. But Elon and Vivek aren't politicians. They don't need re-election. They are looking at the United States as a legacy code that is full of bugs and needs to be rewritten from scratch. If you've ever worked in an office, you know that one person who does nothing but manage people who are actually doing the work. Now imagine an entire city filled with those people. That's Washington, D.C. They have created a system where they are the middlemen for everything. You want to build a bridge, you have to pay them for a permit. You want to start a bank, you have to hire their former employees to handle compliance. You want to sell a new medicine, you have to wait 10 years for them to say it's okay while people are dying. Elon and Vivek want to cut the middlemen out. They want to move at the speed of Musk. The deep state is currently trying to figure out how to contain this. They will try to bury DOGE in committees. They will try to say it's unconstitutional. But the beauty of what Elon is doing is that he is using the most powerful tool in the world, public opinion, by being transparent, by posting the top 10 most ridiculous government spends every week. He is making it socially impossible for politicians to defend the waste. How can a congressman defend spending $300,000 to study if goats like to be petted when his own constituents can't afford rent? They can't. And that is how Elon wins. He shames them into being honest. But let's talk about the risk of the great retaliation. Jeffrey Sachs, who we've talked about before, often warns about the military-industrial complex. This is the most dangerous part of the deep state. These are the people who manage the $800 billion defense budget. Elon has already said he wants to audit the Pentagon. Do you know what happens to people who try to audit the Pentagon? Ask the people who tried on September 10th, 2001. This is serious stuff. There are hundreds of billions of dollars flowing into black budget projects that no one sees. Elon is stepping into a world of state secrets and national security justifications. They will tell him, you can't cut this, it's a matter of national security. Elon's response will likely be, show me the receipts. The conflict between Elon and the unelected bureaucracy is the ultimate battle of our time. It's the disruptor versus the institution. It's the future versus the past. And for the first time, the future has a megaphone that can't be turned off. Every time the media tries to lie about what DOGE is doing, Elon can just post the truth to 200 million people instantly. The gatekeepers have lost their gates. Vivek Ramaswamy brings a unique perspective to this because he understands the woke bureaucracy. He has exposed how DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion programs have been used as a Trojan horse to hire political activists into every level of the federal government. These people aren't there to serve the public. They are there to enforce an ideology. By cutting these programs, Vivek isn't just saving money, he's restoring the meritocracy that made America a superpower. He wants a government where you get a job because you're the best at it, not because you check a certain box. This $2 trillion war is also a war for the soul of the dollar. If the U.S. continues on its current path, the dollar will eventually be replaced by a digital currency controlled by the central banks, CBDCs, or it will simply collapse under the weight of the debt. By cutting the deficit, DOGE is actually the best defense we have against the total loss of financial privacy. A lean government doesn't need to track every $600 Venmo transaction to survive. Only a desperate, bloated government does that. So as we watch this play out, remember the formula. The media will provide the fear, the bureaucracy will provide the friction, but Elon and Vivek are providing the facts. The question is, which one will the American people choose to believe? We have been conditioned for decades to believe that the government is this all-powerful parental figure that we can't live without. Elon is here to show us that the Wizard of Oz is just a small man behind a curtain with a megaphone. The DOGE revolution is the great reset that we actually want. It's a reset to common sense. It's a reset to fiscal responsibility. It's a reset to the idea that the people who work and produce should be the ones who decide how their society is run, not the people who sit in marble buildings in D.C. consuming the fruits of other people's labor. This is going to be the most documented, most debated, and most consequential corporate restructuring in human history. Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy are taking on the most powerful organization on the planet, the U.S. federal government, and they are doing it for you. Whether you love Elon or hate him, you have to admit no one else has the guts to even try this. The deep state is about to find out what happens when you try to fight a guy who builds rockets for fun. They are used to fighting politicians who can be intimidated by a leaked memo or a bad poll. They aren't used to fighting a guy who views a bad poll as a data point to be optimized. The culture clash will be epic. Washington, D.C. moves in fiscal years. Elon moves in sprints. The collision of these two speeds will create sparks that will be felt around the globe. In the end, this isn't just about saving $2 trillion. It's about saving the idea of America. It's about proving that a government of the people, by the people, and for the people can actually function without being choked to death by its own weight. It's about proving that we are still a nation of pioneers and builders, not just a nation of bureaucrats and debt collectors. So keep your eyes on the DOGE, not the ticker symbol, but the mission, because if Elon and Vivek win this war, the $2 trillion they save will be the greatest dividend ever paid to the American people. The war on the deep state has officially begun, and for the first time in a century, the deep state might actually lose. The stakes couldn't be higher. The debt is a ticking time bomb. The bureaucracy is a suffocating blanket, and the administrative state is a shadow that has grown too long. But as the saying goes, the best way to predict the future is to invent it. Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy are trying to invent a future where America is solvent, efficient, and free. It's a bold vision. It's a dangerous vision. But in a world full of inevitable decline, it's the only vision that gives us a fighting chance. Welcome to the dog revolution. It's going to be a wild ride. But as we've seen with everything Elon touches, never bet against the guy who is willing to blow up the old world to build a better one. The $2 trillion war is here. It's time to see who really runs this country. Is it the people who pay the bills or the people who spend the money? We're about to find out. Stay tuned, stay informed, and most importantly, stay vigilant. This is your money, your country, and your future. Don't let the deep state tell you that efficiency is a threat. Efficiency is freedom, and it's about time we had a little more of it.